The deep space research vessel times Prometheus Dawn times drifted silently through the darkness between stars. Captain Tae-Yang stood on the bridge, watching the view screen with tired eyes. They had been searching this sector for 3 weeks, looking for anything interesting. Most days brought nothing but empty space and distant stars. Today was different. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," Yuna called from her station. The young communications officer leaned forward, her fingers dancing across the controls. "There's a structure about 2 million kilometers ahead. It's not natural." Taeyang moved to her side. "Show me." The view screen changed, displaying a massive object floating in the void. It looked ancient, covered in strange symbols that glowed faintly. The structure was enormous, easily 5 times the size of their ship. Its design was unlike anything in the human database. "Get Dr. Jiwan up here," Taeyang ordered. Minutes later, the ship's chief scientist arrived. Nari Jiwan pressed her face close to the screen, her eyes wide with excitement. "This is incredible. These markings, they're at least 10,000 years old. Maybe older. This could change everything we know about this region of space." "Is it safe to approach?" Taeyang asked. Jiwan nodded quickly. "All scans show it's inactive. No power readings, no radiation. It's just floating there, waiting to be found." Taeyang made his decision. "Take us closer. Start scanning everything. Yuna, send a message to Earth. Tell them we've found something important." The times Prometheus Dawn times moved toward the ancient structure. The crew worked with excitement, running every scan they could think of. Jiwan and her team filled reports with data, already planning their first exploration of the interior. That's when the warning alarms screamed. "Captain, we have incoming ships." Yuna's voice was sharp with fear. 4 vessels. Moving fast. They're big. Military class. The view screen shifted. 4 warships emerged from behind a nearby moon, their hulls dark purple and covered in weapon ports. They moved with purpose, forming a blockade between the times Prometheus Dawn times and the ancient structure. "Identify them," Taeyang ordered, his calm voice hiding his worry. "They're Velcrin Imperium ships," Yuna replied. "They're hailing us. Audio only. Put them through." A harsh voice filled the bridge, speaking through the translation system. "Human vessel. You are in violation of Velcrin territorial space. Surrender the artifact immediately and depart. You have 1 minute to comply." Taeyang frowned. He pulled up the star charts on his console. "This is neutral space according to the Galactic Assembly. We have every right to be here." 30 seconds, human. Jiwan moved closer to Taeyang. "Captain, we can't just leave. This discovery is too important. If they take it, we'll never see it again." Taeyang nodded. He understood. He opened the channel again. "Velcrin vessels, this is Captain Taeyang of the times Prometheus Dawn **. We are operating under Galactic Assembly laws regarding salvage rights in neutral territory. The structure was abandoned. We claimed it first. We will not surrender our legal claim." There was a long silence. Then the Velcrin voice came back, colder than before. "You dare refuse us? Lesser species do not refuse the Velcrin Imperium." "We're not refusing you," Taeyang replied calmly. "We're following the law. The same law your empire signed. I'm broadcasting this entire conversation on all channels. Every species in the assembly will hear how you're violating their own agreements." Yuna worked quickly at her station, sending the transmission across dozens of frequencies. It would reach other ships, other stations, other worlds. Everyone would know. The Velcrin commander made a sound like grinding metal. "You will regret this insult, human." Bright light flashed across the view screen. Warning shots from the Velcrin ships cut through space near the times Prometheus Dawn *. Close enough that the shields flickered. "Captain, they're trying to scare us away," said the helmsman, his hands tight on the controls. Taeyang stood straight, his jaw set. "Hold position. They won't risk an actual attack. Too many witnesses now." But he was wrong. The Velcrin had spent centuries as the dominant military power in their region. Other species always backed down when threatened. The idea that these young humans would stand firm against them was not just unexpected, it was insulting. It could not be allowed. "Captain, they're powering weapons!" Yuna screamed. "Real weapons this time. Shields up." Evasive. The first blast hit before they could move. The Times Prometheus Dawn Times shook violently as energy weapons tore through the shields like paper. Explosions ripped through the hull. The lights flickered and died, replaced by red emergency lighting. Taeyang pulled himself up from the floor where the impact had thrown him. "Damage report. Hull breaches on decks 3 through 7, someone shouted. "We've lost engines. Life support failing." Another blast struck. This one punched straight through the ship's core. Taeyang felt the floor tilt as artificial gravity failed. He grabbed a support rail, floating now, watching his crew do the same. Jiwon was beside him, blood running down her face from a cut above her eye. "Captain, we need to evacuate. Escape pods are destroyed," Yuna said, her voice strangely calm now. "So are the communications arrays. We can't even send a distress signal." The ship shuddered again. Through the view screen, they could see the Velcrin warships circling like sharks, firing again and again. The Times, Prometheus Dawn Times, was dying. Taeyang looked at his crew. Good people. Scientists and explorers. Not soldiers. They didn't deserve this. He thought about Earth, about the billions of humans spread across 47 colony worlds. He thought about what would happen when they learned about this. "Yuna," he said quietly, "is there any way to send a message? Any way at all?" "Any way at all." She checked her ruined console, then nodded. "There's an old emergency beacon. Short range only, but it should reach the nearest human outpost. Maybe 3 light-years away. Record this," Taeyang said. He straightened, even as the ship fell apart around him. "To Earth Defense Command. This is Captain Taeyang of the Times Prometheus Dawn *. We discovered an ancient alien structure in neutral space, coordinates attached. The Velcrin Imperium demanded we surrender it. We refused based on salvage laws. They destroyed us for following the law." Another explosion. The bridge began venting atmosphere. Taeyang kept talking, his voice steady. "Tell our families we died doing our jobs. Tell Earth what happened here." He paused, looking at his crew one last time. "And tell them we don't negotiate with bullies. Tell them they just woke up the wrong species." The final blast came. The Times, Prometheus Dawn Times, broke apart in a flash of light and debris. 37 people died in seconds, floating in the cold darkness of space. The Velcrin warships scanned the wreckage to ensure nothing survived. Satisfied, they claimed the ancient structure and departed. The Velcrin commander sent his report back to the Imperium, expecting praise for dealing with the stubborn humans. The emergency beacon, small and damaged, transmitted its message into the dark. It would take days to reach the nearest human outpost. But when it did, everything would change. The message ended with Captain Taeyang's last words, recorded for anyone who would listen. The Velcrin had no idea what they had done. They had dealt with dozens of alien species, and all had responded the same way to overwhelming force. They had retreated, negotiated, accepted their losses, but they had never met a species quite like humanity before. The beacon drifted through space, carrying its warning. The war hadn't started yet. But soon, very soon, the Velcrin would learn what it meant to hunt apex predators. 3 weeks had passed since the massacre. The Galactic Assembly had called an emergency session at Zenith Prime, the massive neutral station that served as their meeting place. Representatives from 12 different species gathered in the Great Council Chamber, a vast room with seats arranged in a circle. The Velcrin delegation sat in their section, looking confident. High Prelate Torvan, the leader who had ordered the attack, wore his finest ceremonial armor. He expected the usual process. The humans would complain. The assembly would discuss. Perhaps Earth would receive some minor compensation. That's how these things always worked. Ambassador Junho walked into the chamber alone. He was a small man by human standards, thin and older, with gray hair and dark eyes. He moved to the human section and sat without saying a word. The other ambassadors noticed something different about him. He wasn't showing the usual anger or sadness that came after such incidents. Instead, he simply watched and waited. The assembly chairman, a tall insect-like being from the Thesson Collective, activated the central hologram. Images of the destroyed times, Prometheus Dawn times appeared, floating above the chamber floor. "We have gathered to address the incident between the Velkrin Imperium and the human vessel," the chairman said. "High Prelate Torvan, you may present your position first." Torvan stood, his forearms spread wide. "The humans entered Velkrin space without permission. They attempted to steal an ancient artifact that rightfully belongs to our empire. We issued proper warnings. They refused to comply. We took appropriate defensive action." Several ambassadors nodded. This was the normal pattern. Space was disputed. Warnings were issued. Violence sometimes followed. Usually, the younger species learned to respect the older ones. "Ambassador Junho," the chairman said. "You may respond." Junho stood slowly. He didn't move to the speaking platform. Instead, he pulled out a small device and activated it. Another hologram appeared, showing star charts with clear markings. "The coordinates are public record," Junho said quietly. The structure was in neutral space, confirmed by 3 independent navigation systems. The Velkrin lied. Torvan made an angry sound. "How dare you? I'm not finished," Junho said, his voice still soft but somehow filling the chamber. The Times, Prometheus Dawn Times, was a research vessel. No weapons. No military purpose. 37 scientists and crew. The Velkrin destroyed them without provocation and against every law this assembly claims to uphold. The Thesson chairman shifted uncomfortably. "Ambassador, while tragic, these incidents happen. Your people are new to galactic society. Perhaps they didn't understand the risks of claiming valuable finds in disputed areas. The assembly proposes mediation. The Velkrin will pay a compensation fee, and both sides will—" "No," Junho said. The chamber went silent. That wasn't how this worked. The victim species always accepted mediation. "No?" the chairman repeated. "There will be no mediation," Junho said. "No negotiation. The Velkrin murdered 37 unarmed civilians. That is not a dispute. That is a war crime." Torvan laughed, a harsh sound that echoed. "War crime? Your children playing in space. You've been traveling the stars for what? 300 years? We have civilizations older than your recorded history. You will accept what the assembly offers, or you will get nothing." Junho smiled then, and several ambassadors felt their skin crawl at that expression. It wasn't a happy smile. "Counselor Minji," Junho called out, "please educate our friends." A woman entered the chamber, carrying a data tablet. Minji was younger than Junho, with sharp eyes and military bearing. She connected the tablet to the central hologram system. "I'm a human historian specializing in military history," Minji said. "I'd like to share some information about my species that you may find interesting." The hologram changed, showing Earth from space. Then it zoomed in, showing images from throughout human history. Battlefields, wars, weapons. Most species in this assembly evolved from prey animals, Minji explained. Herd creatures who found safety in numbers. Colony insects who function as unified groups. Your instincts are cooperation, conformity, submission to stronger powers. This shapes how you think, how you build societies, how you wage wars. She pressed a button. The images changed, showing early humans hunting across grasslands. Humans evolved differently. We are persistence hunters. Apex predators. For millions of years, we chased prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. We learned to track, to plan, to never give up. These instincts are in every human alive today. The alien ambassadors watched the images with growing unease. They saw humans hunting creatures 10 times their size. They saw early humans using primitive weapons to kill predators that should have been able to kill them easily. This is ancient history, Torvan interrupted. What does it matter now? Everything, Minji said sharply. Because we never stopped. Look at our history. The hologram showed war after war. Humans fighting humans, developing new weapons, new tactics, new ways to kill. The images moved through centuries in minutes. Bronze swords became steel. Spears became guns. Guns became missiles. Missiles became nuclear weapons. In 10,000 years, Minji said. Humans went from stone tools to weapons that can destroy entire planets. We have fought wars that killed tens of millions. We hunted every large animal on our planet to extinction or near extinction. We turned every tool we ever invented into a weapon. This isn't something we're proud of. It's just what we are. She turned to face the assembly directly. You need to understand something fundamental about humanity. When you're descended from prey animals, your instinct when threatened is to flee, to submit, to negotiate. When you're descended from persistence hunters, your instinct is very different. What instinct is that? The chairman asked nervously. To hunt back, Junho said quietly. To never stop hunting until the threat is eliminated. Torvin laughed again, but it sounded forced now. You're trying to frighten us with stories of your primitive past. We have superior technology. More ships. Larger armies. If you attack the Velcrin Imperium, you will lose. Junho looked at him for a long moment. High Prelate. Do you know what the last message from Captain Taeyang said? I don't care about, he said. Tell them they just woke up the wrong species. Junho continued. He knew he was about to die. He knew his crew was about to die, and his last thought was that you had made a terrible mistake. Threats mean nothing, Torvin said. It's not a threat, Junho replied. It's a warning. You see, there's something else you should know about humans. We've been killing each other for our entire history, but we developed something you don't have. Rules about war, laws, ethics. We learn to control our violent instincts, to choose when to use them. He gestured to the hologram, which now showed human cities, art, music, science. We're not monsters. We're capable of great compassion, incredible creativity, profound love. We want peace. We always prefer peace. Then accept the mediation, the chairman said hopefully. I said we prefer peace, Junho corrected. I didn't say we'll accept it at any cost. The Velcrin didn't attack a military target. They murdered scientists. They killed people who were following the law. That broke something. Broke what? Torvan demanded. The restraints we put on ourselves, Minji answered. The rules that keep us civilized. You've shown us that talking doesn't work with you. That following laws doesn't work. That being peaceful just makes us targets. Junho pulled out another device. I need to inform this assembly of recent developments. 3 days ago, Earth issued Defense Protocol 7. All human military vessels have been recalled from their standard positions. All colony worlds have activated their defense fleets. The human government has suspended all non-essential trade with Velcrin space. That's an economic embargo, the chairman protested. That requires assembly approval. We're not asking for approval, Junho said. We're informing you as a courtesy. He pressed the device. A map of known space appeared, showing the locations of various ships and fleets. The Velcrin section showed their normal patrol routes and defensive positions. This is current Velcrin fleet deployment, Junho said. Then he pressed again. This is current human fleet deployment. The map showed empty space where human ships should be. Every single human vessel had vanished from its expected location. Where are your ships? Torvan asked, trying to sound confident but failing. Hunting, Junho said simply. The chamber erupted in shouting. Multiple ambassadors tried to speak at once. The chairman called for order. But no one listened. Junho simply walked toward the exit. Minji followed him. Ambassador Junho, the chairman called. You cannot leave. We must discuss this. Junho turned at the doorway. You wanted to treat this like a minor dispute. You wanted us to negotiate with people who murdered our citizens. But we've made our decision. The Velcrin Imperium has until the end of this cycle to surrender those responsible for the attack. If they don't, we will come take them." "This is madness," Torvin shouted. "You're declaring war on us? We'll crush you." "No," Junho said quietly. "You declared war when you fired on unarmed scientists. We're just accepting your terms." He paused at the door. "And High Prelate? You can't crush what you can't find. Good luck sleeping tonight. We're out there now, somewhere. And we're very, very patient." The doors closed behind the human delegation. In the chamber, the ambassadors sat in shocked silence. This had never happened before. Younger species didn't threaten older ones, prey didn't hunt predators, but as several of them were beginning to realize, humans weren't prey. They never had been. And the Velcrin had just given them a reason to remember what they really were. 2 months after the emergency assembly session, the Velcrin Imperium was starting to panic. At first, they had laughed at the human threat. Their empire controlled 23 star systems. They had 300 warships. Their military was feared across 5 sectors of space. But something was very wrong. It started small. A supply convoy heading to an outer colony simply disappeared. No distress signal. No wreckage found. The convoy was there one moment, and gone the next. The Velcrin sent a patrol to investigate. The patrol never came back either. Then, a mining station at the edge of Velcrin space stopped responding. When they sent ships to check, they found the station intact but abandoned. All the Velcrin workers were gone. The only thing left was a message on the main computer screen. "We're coming." More ships vanished. Supply routes became dangerous. Colony worlds stopped receiving shipments. The Velcrin military sent heavily armed escorts with every convoy. But it didn't help. The escorts vanished too. High Prelate Torvin called an emergency meeting of his military commanders. They gathered in the war room on the Velcrin homeworld, looking at star charts that showed their crumbling supply lines. "What are we dealing with?" Torvin demanded. "Where are these human ships? Why can't we find them?" One of his generals, a veteran of a dozen conflicts, studied the reports with confusion. "They're not fighting like any species we've encountered. They don't engage in direct combat. They hit and run. They strike from nowhere and vanish before we can respond. How is that possible? Our sensors should detect them." "That's the problem," another commander said. "They're using some kind of stealth technology we've never seen before. Our sensors pick up nothing until they're already firing. By the time we lock on, they're gone." Far from the homeworld, in the darkness between stars, Commander Sora stood on the bridge of her ship, the Times Shadow of Earth **. It was a human stealth destroyer. Painted black and equipped with technology developed from centuries of submarine warfare. The ship could move silently, hide from sensors, and strike without warning. "Target locked," said Jinwoo, her tactical officer. He was young but brilliant, with an instinct for warfare that reminded Sora of old Earth military commanders. Velcrin's supply depot, lightly defended. 2 patrol ships. "How long until they detect us?" Sora asked. "We're within 500 meters, Jinwoo replied. "They still don't know we're here." Sora smiled grimly. That was the difference. Velcrin sensors were designed to detect ships at long range, where traditional battles happened. They expected enemies to come at them from thousands of kilometers away, giving time to prepare and respond. They had no experience with stealth warfare. "Fire," Sora ordered. The Times Shadow of Earth Times unleashed its weapons at point-blank range. The Velcrin patrol ships exploded before they could raise shields. The supply depot's defenses came online too late. Within 90 seconds, the entire facility was destroyed. "Any survivors?" Sora asked. "Picking up escape pods," Jinwoo confirmed. "About 40 Velcrin made it out." "Leave them," Sora said. "Make sure they get a clear broadcast of our message." Jinwoo activated the communication system. A pre-recorded message played on all frequencies. "You started this war. You killed unarmed scientists. Now learn what happens when you attack humanity. This is just the beginning." The Times Shadow of Earth Times vanished into the dark, its stealth systems hiding it from all sensors. Behind them, Velcrin survivors floated in escape pods, terrified and confused. They had never seen the human ship until it was too late. Across Velcrin's space, similar attacks happened every day. Captain Hyeri commanded another stealth destroyer, the Times Silent Storm Asterisk. She specialized in hit-and-run tactics learned from ancient Earth naval warfare. Her ship would appear, strike hard, and disappear before the enemy could respond. Hyeri targeted communication stations, cutting the Velcrin's ability to coordinate. Without communication, their vast empire became isolated pockets of frightened worlds, unable to help each other. "Captain, we're approaching the next target," her navigator said. "It's a major relay station, heavily defended." Hyeri studied the tactical display. The station had 6 defensive platforms and a squadron of fighters on patrol. A direct assault would be costly. But humans didn't fight directly when they didn't have to. "Jinwoo sent us his new plan," Hyeri said. "We're going to test it." She explained the strategy. They would deploy false sensor images, making the Velcrin think they were being attacked from multiple directions. While the defenses focused on the fake targets, Hyeri's ship would slip in close and destroy the station's power core. It was a tactic adapted from ancient air warfare, from wars fought on Earth centuries ago. The Velcrin had never encountered anything like it. The plan worked perfectly. The defensive platforms fired at ghost images while the Times Silent Storm Times positioned itself beneath the station. One precise shot disabled the power. The station went dark, its weapons and shields useless. Hyeri's crew broadcast another message and left. The Velcrin fleet commanders began to panic. They couldn't fight enemies they couldn't see. They tried new tactics, new formations, new sensor arrays. Nothing worked. The human ships were always one step ahead. That's when they realized the humans were doing something else, something worse than the physical attacks. They were destroying Velcrin morale. Every attack came with a message. Sometimes it was about the Times Prometheus Dawn asterisk. Sometimes it was a list of the 37 people who died. Sometimes it was just a simple phrase, "We remember." The messages played on every Velcrin ship, every station, every planet. Even when the humans didn't attack, the messages kept coming. Velcrin soldiers went to sleep hearing the names of the people they had killed. They woke up to reminders that somewhere in the dark, human ships were hunting them. It was psychological warfare on a scale the Velcrin had never imagined. Their soldiers began refusing to patrol. Ships stayed in port. Crews claiming equipment failures. Some colonies tried to surrender, but there was no one to surrender to. The humans weren't interested in occupation. They just kept hunting. High Prelate Torvan watched his empire fall apart. 15 of his 23 systems had lost all military effectiveness. Supply chains were destroyed. Communications were sporadic. His remaining fleets huddled around major worlds, too afraid to leave orbit. "How many ships have we lost?" he asked his chief military advisor. 217 confirmed destroyed, the advisor said quietly. "Another 60 missing, presumed captured or destroyed. We've lost 70% of our military capability. In 2 months?" Torvan couldn't believe it. "How is that possible? How many ships do the humans have?" "We don't know. Our intelligence estimates somewhere between 30 and 50 vessels actively engaging us. Maybe less." Torvan felt cold. 50 ships had destroyed an empire of 300. Why can't we hit back? Why can't we find Earth or their colonies? They're using defensive tactics we can't counter. Every approach to human space is monitored by sensor nets we can't penetrate. Any ship that tries to enter their territory simply disappears. We think they have minefields, automated defense platforms, and hidden ships covering every route. It was true. While the human attack ships hunted in Velcrin space, Earth's defensive fleets protected their own worlds with absolute effectiveness. They had learned from thousands of years of military history. Attack and defense required different strategies. In his office on Earth, Admiral Doyun reviewed the latest reports. He was the architect of the entire campaign, a man who had spent his life studying warfare from every era of human history. "The Velcrin are broken," his aide reported. "Their military is paralyzed by fear. Most of their ships won't leave port. Good, Doyun said. But we're not done. They need to understand the full cost of what they did. Sir, the Galactic Assembly is demanding we stop. They say we've made our point. Doyun looked at the holographic memorial floating on his desk. 37 faces. 37 names. Scientists who had died doing nothing but their jobs. They murdered civilians, Doyun said quietly. They laughed about it. They thought we would just accept it and move on. We will stop when they surrender completely, not before. He activated the communication system. Commander Sora, Captain Hyrie, all fleet commanders. Proceed to Phase 3. It's time to show them we can reach anyone, anywhere. In the darkness of space, the human ships received their orders. They had been hunting military targets, crippling the Velcrin war machine. Now they would do something that would end the war forever. They would go straight to the Velcrin homeworld itself. High Prelate Torvin sat in his palace on the homeworld, surrounded by the strongest defenses the Empire could provide. Hundreds of ships orbited above. Thousands of defensive platforms protected every approach. He should have been safe. That's when his personal computer activated on its own. A message appeared on the screen, bypassing every security system his empire possessed. We know where you are, we're coming. It was signed with 37 names. Every person who died on the Times, Prometheus Dawn **. Torvin stared at the screen, his 4 hands trembling. In that moment, he finally understood. The humans weren't just winning the war. They were teaching a lesson that would echo across the galaxy for generations. Never attack their unarmed civilians. Never underestimate them. And never, ever assume they'll fight the way you expect them to. The Velcrin homeworld had never known fear like this. For 3 days after the message appeared on High Prelate Torvan's personal computer, nothing happened. No attacks. No more messages. Just silence. The waiting was worse than any battle. Torvan had tripled the defensive fleet around the planet. Every ship in the Empire that could still fly was called home. 200 warships now orbited the homeworld in tight defensive formations. Thousands of weapons platforms hung in space, their sensors scanning constantly for any sign of approaching ships. But the humans didn't come. Not yet. In the Galactic Assembly Chamber, an emergency session was underway. Every species had representatives present, even those who usually avoided politics. What was happening between humanity and the Velcrin had made everyone nervous. This has gone too far, the Thesson chairman declared. The humans must stop their attacks immediately. The Velcrin have suffered enough. Ambassador Junho sat quietly in the human section. Beside him, Counselor Minji reviewed data on her tablet. Neither of them looked concerned. Ambassador Junho, your silence is noted, the chairman said. Will humanity accept a ceasefire? That depends, Junho replied calmly. On what? On whether the Velcrin are ready to surrender. Torvan, attending the session remotely from his bunker on the homeworld, made an angry sound. Surrender? We still have 200 ships. We can still fight. Can you? Junho asked. How many of those ships have crews willing to leave orbit? How many captains will follow orders to engage? Your military isn't fighting back anymore. They're hiding. It was true, and everyone knew it. The reports were clear. Velcrin ships refused combat. When human vessels appeared, the Velcrin either fled or simply waited to be destroyed. The fight had gone out of them. You've destroyed our supply lines, our communications, our ability to coordinate. Torvan said, his voice bitter. What more do you want? Justice, Junho said simply. You murdered 37 unarmed civilians. You laughed about it. You thought we would just accept it. We want those responsible to answer for what they did. I'm responsible, Torvan said. I gave the order. Will you be satisfied if I surrender myself? Before Junho could answer, another human entered the chamber. Fleet Admiral Yunji walked with military precision. Her uniform crisp and decorated with medals. She was the architect of Earth's military strategy, the person who had planned every phase of the war. Yunji stood beside Junho. The High Prelate is correct. He gave the order. But he wasn't alone. We know the names of every ship captain who participated in the attack. We know who fired the first shot. We know who kept firing even after the Times Prometheus Dawn Times was crippled and helpless. She activated a hologram. Names and faces appeared. Dozens of Velcrin military officers. These individuals committed murder, Yunji continued. They will stand trial for war crimes. The High Prelate will surrender himself, and these officers, to a neutral tribunal. They will face justice under Galactic Assembly law. And if I refuse, Torvan asked, then we continue what we've been doing, Yunji replied. But we'll escalate. Right now, we've been targeting only military assets. We've avoided civilian casualties despite having many opportunities to cause them. If you refuse justice, that changes. The chamber went silent. The implication was clear. Humanity was showing restraint. But that restraint had limits. A new voice joined the conversation. Seo Jun, humanity's lead negotiator, appeared on another screen. He was known across the galaxy as a hard man to deal with. Someone who never gave ground in discussions. Let me make humanity's position clear, Seo Jun said. We want more than just the surrender of individuals. We want changes to how this galaxy operates. What kind of changes? The chairman asked nervously. Seo Jun pulled up a document. First, the Galactic Assembly will formally recognize that attacks on civilian vessels are war crimes, punishable by military intervention. Second, salvage rights in neutral space will be strictly enforced. No species can claim artifacts or structures simply because they're more powerful. Third, any species that violates these laws will face immediate sanctions and potential military action. You can't dictate terms to the entire assembly. One of the alien ambassadors protested. We're not dictating, Junho said quietly. We're explaining what happens if you don't change. The Velcrin thought they could do whatever they wanted because they were strong. They were wrong. Other species are watching what happened to them. They're learning. He stood and looked around the chamber. Let me tell you what we've learned about you. Almost every species here is descended from prey animals. You avoid conflict. You submit to strength. You negotiate and compromise because your instincts tell you to flee or surrender when threatened. That's not wrong. It's just who you are. But humans are different, Minji added. We're predators. When threatened, we hunt back. When attacked, we don't surrender, we escalate. You can't intimidate us into submission because that's not how our minds work. Admiral Unji stepped forward. Here's what else you should know. This entire war, we've been operating at about 30% of our military capability. The ships hunting in Velcrin space, that's a small fraction of our fleet. Most of our military is still defending human worlds, waiting to see if anyone else decides to test us. She let that sink in. The alien ambassadors looked at each other in shock. 30% destroyed the Velcrin Empire, Unji continued. Imagine what 100% could do. Now imagine if we stopped showing restraint. If we decided that civilians were acceptable targets. If we used the same tactics you used against us. This is a threat, Torvan said weakly. No, Junho corrected. It's a warning. We don't want to be monsters. We want peace. We want to trade, explore, share knowledge with other species. But we will not be victims. We will not accept that might makes right. If you want peace with humanity, you need to understand our terms. Seojun brought up the formal demands. The Velcrin Empire will surrender all individuals responsible for the attack. They will pay compensation to the families of everyone who died. They will reduce their military by 75% and submit to assembly monitoring for the next 50 years. And they will issue a public apology acknowledging their war crimes. That will destroy our empire, Torvan said. You should have thought about that before you killed 37 scientists. Junho replied without sympathy. The chamber erupted in debate. Some species supported the human demands. Others thought they were too harsh. But everyone understood one thing. Humanity wasn't going to back down. After 3 hours of discussion, Torvan asked for a private channel with the human delegation. When the connection was secured, he looked at Junho with defeated eyes. "If I agree to everything, will you stop?" Torvan asked. "Will you spare what's left of my people?" "We never targeted your civilians," Junho reminded him. "Every person who died in this war was a valid military target. We could have done far worse. We chose not to." "Why? Why show us mercy?" Junho thought about Captain Tae-yang and Dr. Ji-won and the 35 others who died for no reason except that they were in the way. "Because we're not you. We don't kill civilians. We don't murder the innocent. What we do is defend ourselves and punish those who hurt us. That's all we're doing." Torvan nodded slowly. "I'll surrender. All of us. Whatever you demand." "Good," Unji said. "Your ships will stand down immediately. The officers on our list will turn themselves in within 1 planetary cycle. You'll sign the treaty within 2 cycles. And then you'll leave?" "We'll leave when justice is done," Junho said. "When the families of the dead receive their compensation. When the treaty is signed and witnessed. When we're satisfied that you understand the cost of what you did." The transmission ended. In the assembly chamber, news of the surrender spread quickly. Some ambassadors celebrated. Others sat in worried silence, realizing that the balance of power in the galaxy had just shifted dramatically. High Prelate Torvan made a galaxy-wide broadcast from his bunker. His voice was hollow as he announced the surrender. "The Velkrin Empire accepts full responsibility for the unprovoked attack on the Times Prometheus. Dawn **. We surrender to human justice. We beg forgiveness from the families of the dead." It was the most humiliating moment in Velkrin history. An empire that had dominated their region for centuries had been brought to its knees in 4 months by a species they had dismissed as primitives. On Earth, Fleet Admiral Doyun watched the broadcast with mixed feelings. They had won. Justice would be served. But he thought about the Velkrin soldiers who had died. Young people following orders, probably not much different from human soldiers. War always had a cost, even when it was necessary. Commander Sora and Captain Hyrie received the order to stand down. Their ships, which had been preparing for the final assault on the Velkrin homeworld, powered down their weapons. The hunt was over. In her cabin, Sora looked at the memorial wall she had created. 37 faces. She had avenged them. But somehow, it didn't feel like enough. Revenge never did. The human ships began the long journey home, leaving Velkrin space as quietly as they had hunted through it. Behind them, they left a broken empire and a galaxy that would never see humanity the same way again. The prey species had learned a hard lesson. There were predators in the galaxy who chose to be civilized. But if you broke their rules, if you harmed their innocent, they would remind you what they really were. And that lesson would be remembered for generations to come. 1 year had passed since the war ended. The galaxy looked very different now. The Velkrin Empire was a shadow of its former self. High Prelate Torvan and 43 other officers were serving life sentences in a neutral prison facility. The Velkrin military had been reduced to a small defensive force, barely enough to protect their own worlds. Their once proud civilization had become cautious and quiet, avoiding attention from anyone. But the real change was in how other species looked at humanity. Ambassador Junho walked through the halls of Zenith Prime, heading toward another assembly meeting. As he passed, alien diplomats nodded respectfully. Some even moved aside to let him through. It was very different from a year ago when many of them had looked down on the young human species. In the assembly chamber, the meeting was already underway. Today, they were discussing trade agreements, normal peaceful business. Junho took his seat and listened as various species debated shipping routes and tariffs. "Ambassador Junho," the chairman said, "does humanity have any concerns about the proposed trade corridor through Sector 7? "None," Junho replied, "as long as all parties respect the established salvage laws and civilian protection protocols." Several ambassadors nodded immediately. No one argued. The new laws that humanity had demanded were now standard across assembly space. It was amazing how quickly things could change when people were properly motivated. After the meeting, Junho met with Counselor Minji in a private room. She had data reports from Earth's intelligence services. 3 more species have applied for defensive pacts with humanity, Minji said. That makes 12 total. They want human protection against potential aggression. Junho rubbed his tired eyes. We're not trying to build an empire, I know. But they're scared. Not of us exactly, but of what happens if someone attacks them, and we're not there to help. The Velcrin were the regional bullies. Now that they're gone, smaller species feel vulnerable. It was true. The power vacuum left by the Velcrin's fall had created uncertainty. Some species saw humanity as natural protectors. Others worried about human power growing too large. Far from the assembly station, on a human military base, Commander Sora sat in a therapy session. The war had been over for a year, but the memories remained sharp. I destroyed 23 Velcrin ships personally, she told the counselor. Hundreds of enemy soldiers died because of my orders. I know it was war. I know they fired first. But I still see their faces sometimes. The counselor, a kind woman named Yuna who specialized in military trauma, nodded with understanding. What you're feeling is normal. You're not a monster for having done your duty. You're human for feeling conflicted about it. Captain Taeyang and the others deserved justice, Sora said. But did all those Velcrin soldiers deserve to die? Most of them were just following orders. That's a question military people have asked throughout human history, Yuna said gently. There's no easy answer. What matters is that you made choices you believed were right at the time, and that you're trying to process them now, rather than ignoring what you feel. Captain Hyeri was having similar struggles. She had been promoted to admiral after the war, but the achievement felt hollow. She spent her days training new officers, teaching them the tactics that had won the war. But she always emphasized one thing. War should be the last option, she told her students. We won because we were better at violence than the Velcrin. But that doesn't make violence good. It makes it necessary sometimes. Learn the difference. Young officer Jinwoo, now a commander himself, raised his hand. Admiral, some people say we were too harsh. That we destroyed the Velcrin Empire too completely. Hyeri considered the question carefully. The Velcrin killed unarmed scientists and expected no consequences. If we had been soft, if we had just negotiated and moved on, what message would that send? Every bully in the galaxy would know they could attack humans without real punishment. So it was about deterrence? Another student asked. Partly. But it was also about justice. 37 people died. They had families, friends, dreams. They mattered. We made sure the galaxy knows that human lives matter, that we'll protect our own. Is that harsh? Maybe. But it's honest. On Earth, at the memorial station built where the Times Prometheus Dawn Times had been destroyed, a special ceremony was taking place. The families of the 37 dead had gathered to witness something remarkable. Dr. Jiwan had kept detailed personal logs throughout her work. Using advanced AI and holographic technology, human engineers had created a digital reconstruction of her personality. It wasn't truly her, everyone understood that. But it was close enough to provide some comfort. The hologram activated, showing Jiwan as she had been, excited, curious, always smiling. The hologram had been programmed with all her research and personal logs. Hello, the hologram said in Jiwan's voice. If you're seeing this, it means I'm gone. But my work continues. I spent my life studying the universe, trying to understand the amazing complexity of life across the stars. I hope this digital version of me can continue that work, can keep exploring and learning. The hologram turned to face the gathered families. To my family and friends, don't be sad. I died doing what I loved. I died among the stars, making discoveries, pushing the boundaries of knowledge. That's all I ever wanted. Many people cried. It was painful and beautiful at the same time. The hologram couldn't replace the real person, but it preserved something important. Her passion, her curiosity, her hope for the future. Ambassador Junho attended the ceremony. Afterward, He spoke privately with some of the families. "Did we do right?" one of them asked him. "All this war, all this death, was it worth it?" Junho thought carefully before answering. "Your loved ones were killed for no reason except that they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. The Velkrin thought human life was cheap, that we wouldn't fight back. We proved them wrong. We showed the galaxy that humanity protects its own. Was it worth it? I don't know. But it was necessary." The Galactic Assembly had restructured significantly in the past year. Humanity now held a permanent seat on the ruling council. More importantly, the new laws about civilian protection and salvage rights were taken seriously. No species wanted to risk becoming the next Velkrin, but there was fear too. Some alien species worried about humanity's military power. They formed their own defensive alliances, not against any specific threat, but just in case. The galaxy was entering a new era, one where humanity was a major player. In his office on Earth, Admiral Doyun reviewed reports from across human space. The military was being reorganized. The lessons from the Velkrin War were being incorporated into training. New weapons systems were being developed, not because humanity wanted another war, but because they wanted to be ready if one came. His aide brought news. "Admiral, we've detected something at the galactic rim. Long-range sensors are picking up unusual activity. It might be another alien species, one we haven't encountered before." Doyun pulled up the sensor data. The readings were strange, unlike anything they'd seen. "What kind of activity?" "Hard to say. The signals suggest massive ships, maybe an entire fleet. They're moving toward inhabited space." "Our line, toward us, toward everyone. If they keep their current course, they'll reach the outer colonies in about 6 months." Doyun felt a familiar tension. The Velkrin War had been personal, driven by revenge and justice. But this might be different. This might be a real threat to the entire galaxy. "Send a message to the Galactic Assembly," Doyun ordered. "Tell them we've detected something unusual. Offer to share our sensor data. And start mobilizing the fleet. Quietly. I don't want to cause panic, but I want us ready." 3 weeks later, the Assembly called another emergency session. The new threat was confirmed. An unknown alien force was approaching inhabited space. Early attempts at communication had failed. The ships kept coming. Ambassador Junho stood before the Assembly, with representatives from dozens of species. "We face an unknown threat," he said. "We don't know if these newcomers are hostile, but we should be prepared for the possibility." The Thessan chairman looked uncomfortable. "What do you suggest?" "A united defense," Junho replied. "Multiple species working together. We share intelligence, coordinate strategies, pool our resources." There was nervous muttering. Many species had never worked together militarily. Then a surprising voice spoke up. It was a Velkrin representative, one of the new leaders who had taken over after Torvan's imprisonment. "The Velkrin will contribute what ships we have," the representative said quietly. "We learned a hard lesson about the cost of aggression. If there's a real threat coming, we'll help defend against it." Other species began volunteering. The galaxy was coming together, united by a common danger. Admiral Hyeri was put in command of the combined fleet. It was an honor and a burden. She would lead not just human ships, but vessels from a dozen different species, each with their own tactics and capabilities. Commander Sora and Commander Jinwoo were assigned to her staff. Together, they began planning how to defend the galaxy's outer regions. "The key is coordination," Sora explained to the mixed group of alien officers. "We need to work together. Human ships will use stealth and rapid strikes. Velkrin ships, despite their reduced numbers, still have strong shields. You'll be our defensive line. The Thessan have excellent long-range sensors. You'll be our eyes." It was strange, working with former enemies. But Sora found that most Velkrin officers were professional and committed. They had learned from their defeat. They wanted to prove they could be trusted again. As the unknown fleet drew closer, humanity prepared in other ways too. Dr. Jiwan's hologram, working with human and alien scientists, analyzed every bit of data they could gather about the newcomers. "These ships are enormous," the hologram reported, "much larger than anything we've seen. And they're using technology that doesn't match any known species." "Could they be peaceful?" someone asked. "Maybe. But their approach pattern suggests military formation. They're not acting like explorers or traders. They're acting like an invasion force." Maybe. The galaxy held its breath. In 6 months, maybe sooner, they would know the truth. On the human colony world of New Sol, people went about their daily lives, largely unaware of the approaching danger. But in orbit above, defense platforms were being activated. Warships took position. Marines drilled for boarding actions and planetary defense. Humanity had learned from the HFY War. They had learned that the galaxy could be dangerous, that being peaceful didn't mean being safe, that sometimes you had to be ready to fight. But they had also learned something else. The night before the expected first contact with the unknown fleet, Ambassador Junho gave an interview that was broadcast across all human worlds. "People ask me if we're at war again," he said. "The answer is no. Not yet. Maybe not ever. We don't know what these newcomers want. We don't know if they're hostile. But we're ready to defend ourselves if necessary. And this time, we won't be alone. The galaxy is standing together." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "The Velcrin taught us that we're strong. But strength without purpose is just violence. We're strong to protect the innocent. We're prepared to fight to defend those who can't defend themselves. That's what makes us different. That's what makes us human." The unknown fleet was now 3 months away. Admiral Hayeri's combined force moved to intercept, positioning themselves between the newcomers and inhabited space. It was the largest military operation in galactic history. Ships from 15 different species, working together, following human tactical coordination. Commander Sora stood on the bridge of her flagship, looking at the sensor displays. The unknown ships were massive, intimidating. This would be different from the HFY War. This would be a real test. But as she looked around at her crew, humans and aliens working side by side, she felt something unexpected. Hope. The galaxy had changed. Species that had been suspicious of each other were now trusting each other with their lives. Maybe that was the real legacy of the time's Prometheus Dawn asterisk. Not the war that followed, but the unity it eventually created. "Admiral Hayeri," the communications officer called. "We're receiving a signal from the unknown fleet. They're responding to our hails." The bridge went silent. This was it. First contact with whatever was coming. The message came through, translated by the computers. "We are the Kethlon Collective. We come seeking allies against a greater threat. We mean you no harm." Relief flooded through the bridge. But Hayeri stayed cautious. "Ask them about this greater threat. Get details." As the conversation continued, the truth emerged. The Kethlon were fleeing from something even more dangerous. A species that consumed entire worlds, stripping them of all life. They had been running for years, hoping to find allies who could help them fight back. Admiral Doyun, watching from Earth, smiled grimly. Another challenge. But this time, humanity wouldn't face it alone. This time, the galaxy was ready. The hologram of Dr. Jiwan, watching the same data, made an observation that would be remembered. "We went to the stars, seeking knowledge. We found danger. We responded with strength. But in the end, we also found friendship. That's the real discovery." And somewhere in the darkness of space, at the memorial station where 37 people had died, their names glowed softly on the monument. They had died as victims of violence, but their deaths had changed the galaxy forever. They had taught humanity its place among the stars, not as conquerors, not as victims, but as protectors. The apex predators had awakened, but they had chosen to use their strength to defend, not destroy. And that choice made all the difference.